Millionaire refuses to take his ugly wife to a party until her stunning makeover shocks. They said love conquers all, but what happens when pride, wealth, and the fear of public humiliation threaten a marriage on the brink? Adam Harrington, a young millionaire known for his shrewd business deals and flamboyant lifestyle, has grown distant from the once vibrant woman he married, Sarah. Now pregnant and grappling with insecurities, Sarah yearns for Adam's support. But his obsession with perfection, especially in the public eye, leads him to commit the unthinkable. He refuses to take her to a high-profile party, calling her ugly and unpresentable. Little does he know that one dazzling makeover will transform everything he believes about power, beauty, and love. Adam Harrington rose early that morning, as he did every day. Long before dawn broke over the sprawling hills surrounding the Harrington estate, he was already out of bed and seated at his meticulously polished mahogany desk. Even at 6 in the morning, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing with updates from overseas partners, impatient clients, and ambitious investors who needed his decisive signature on crucial deals. Adam thrived on it. He enjoyed feeling indispensable, a titan in a world that adored efficiency and results. The estate itself, a near-palatial mansion perched in the exclusive Cherrywood Heights of Los Angeles, reflected Adam's ambitions. High marble pillars fronted the entrance, flanked by intricate topiary hedges that had been carefully manicured by a full-time gardening staff. Gleaming glass windows framed the lavish interior that boasted a dozen rooms he hardly even walked through. Everything about Adam's life screamed wealth, elegance, and success. Yet, amidst all that curated splendor, one room always felt different, the master bedroom he shared with his wife, Sarah. Her soft footprints, the faint lavender scent of her lotions, and the gentle hum of the music she played as she practiced her yoga made that space feel strangely human. In that bedroom, Adam sometimes recalled the early days of their romance. They had met at an entrepreneurial conference in Chicago, back when Adam was just a small-scale tech startup owner trying to impress potential investors. Sarah had been working as an event coordinator. She was sharp, resourceful, and entirely unimpressed by Adam's attempts at grandstanding. He fell in love with her precisely because she refused to be dazzled by his bravado. She saw something genuine in him, a spark, a boyish earnestness beneath the bluster. And for that reason, he had courted her diligently, even when she insisted she preferred a modest dinner date over the high-end Michelin star outings he pushed for. In those days, Sarah was the one who reminded Adam that real wealth was more than just money and appearances. It was about relationships, connections, empathy. She'd been the reason he'd donated large sums to local charities, volunteering part of his weekends for philanthropic events. With her influence, Adam had balanced success with compassion. But that seemed like a lifetime ago. Over the last year or so, business exploded. Investors from Japan to Germany bought into his software. Angel funds had ballooned into a multinational enterprise, Harrington Innovations, and Adam's attention spun in countless directions. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself pregnant. With each passing week, she felt sicker, more exhausted, and more alone. She tried to share her joys and fears, but Adam was rarely around long enough to truly listen. Even when he was physically home, his mind remained on the next big deal. Their conversations had shrunk to near formality. Adam's compliments had disappeared. He started giving Sarah superficial feedback, from her outfit choices to how tired she looked. "This pregnancy is wearing you out," he'd say offhandedly, his eyes glued to his phone. "You should rest more." It hurt. Sarah felt her spirit deflate each time he brushed her concerns aside. She missed the laughter they once shared. She missed the nights they'd talk until dawn about how they'd build a legacy, how they'd raise children who understood true human connection over superficial grandeur. But maybe Adam had become the very person Sarah feared he'd become, a man obsessed with perfection, power, and public image. And if he was that man, where did that leave her, a pregnant wife, anxious about her looks, feeling as if each morning brought new doubts about her husband's love? That day, she awoke to an empty bed once again, a pang of loneliness stabbing at her heart. She picked up the phone and read the text message from Adam. Huge party next weekend, hosted by Bill Gates. Need to impress. Can you handle the estate arrangements? He was going to a gathering with some of the biggest names in tech and philanthropy, but not once did he mention taking her along. And that, more than anything else, confirmed Sarah's growing suspicion. Adam had decided she no longer fit into his public image. Later that morning, Sarah mustered the energy to meet the household staff in the kitchen. There, the long-time housekeeper, Mrs. Kim, hovered near the marble countertops, preparing fresh fruit and herbal tea for her. Mrs. Kim was a petite woman in her mid-50s, originally from Seoul. She had a warm maternal way about her, always fretting over Sarah's health. "You must eat something, Mrs. Harrington," she fussed gently, placing the fruit bowl on the table. "You're taking care of two now." Sarah smiled politely and picked at the fruit, her mind elsewhere. She wanted to ask Miss S. Kim if she had noticed changes in Adam, but she felt embarrassed. It was one thing to suspect your husband found you unattractive, and quite another to admit it to the staff. She excused herself and walked to the sitting room, where tall French windows let in the morning sun. She tried to focus on the baby, the gentle fluttering kicks that, for a moment, filled her with anticipation. This child was half of her, half of Adam, the man she once admired more than anyone in the world. Caught in her reverie, Sarah barely noticed a presence until she heard the footsteps echo on the polished floor. It was Adam, fresh from a meeting with his personal assistant, Delgado, who was trailing behind him. Delgado held a file of documents that needed immediate signatures, a daily occurrence in the Harrington mansion. "Hey," Sarah said softly, her eyes lifting to meet Adam's. "Hello, Sarah," he replied, more formal than warm. His tone was curt, almost businesslike. Delgado paused behind him, patiently waiting. "How's the day looking?" she asked, attempting small talk. "Busy as usual," Adam said. Then, surprising her, he stepped closer. She braced herself, hoping he might give her a gentle peck on the cheek, some semblance of affection. But instead, he frowned, eyeing her from head to toe. "You look tired," he said, and, "well, I was thinking about the party at Bill Gates's estate next weekend. It's a huge deal, global philanthropic leaders, celebrities, top-tier tech entrepreneurs, and Jeff Bezos is rumored to be coming. Even Oprah might show up. I have to be at my best." Sarah's heart leapt at the mention of the event. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I read your text." "I know how important it is." Adam sighed as though collecting his thoughts. Delgado attempted to avert his eyes, obviously uncomfortable. Finally, Adam spoke. "It might not be ideal for you to come this time." A jarring silence followed. Sarah felt as though the air had been sucked out of her lungs. She swallowed hard. "But why?" His gaze shifted, refusing eye contact. You've got a lot on your plate with the pregnancy," he said, his voice barely concealing the subtext. "And these events can be exhausting. Besides," he pressed on, now looking her directly in the eyes with a steely glint, "it's a big social moment. I need to show everyone that I'm, focused." Sarah understood the unspoken words. "You're not presentable. You look worn out." She let out a shaky breath. "Adam, I've supported you for years. I'm aware," he cut in, running a hand through his styled hair. "But you haven't been feeling well. And, well," he paused, letting the meaning hang in the air. Delgado, sensing the tension, stepped out of the room quietly. "Is this about how I look?" Sarah demanded, tears edging her eyes. Her voice quivered, but she couldn't keep it inside anymore. "Have I become so hideous to you?" Adam didn't reply immediately, which was answer enough. She turned away, shoulders trembling. For a moment, he wavered. She could see the faint flicker of sympathy in his eyes, but it quickly faded. "You're exaggerating," he insisted. "We can talk about this later." He quickly turned and left, leaving Sarah in the golden sunlight of the sitting room, tears slowly staining her cheeks. She pressed a hand to her abdomen, feeling the soft flutter of her baby's movements. A part of her wanted to lash out, but she felt paralyzed by heartbreak. She realized something crucial in that moment. Adam's transformation was nearly complete. He had become the kind of man who measured his worth by the size of his fortune and the power of his image. Where did that leave her? Where did that leave their baby? Later that evening, Sarah locked herself in the master bedroom and tried to calm her spiraling thoughts. Outside, the estate's grounds were quiet, except for the occasional crunch of gravel under the security team's footsteps. She could see the expansive lawn, the pool glistening under lamplight, and the carefully trimmed rose garden she used to tend on weekends. It all felt so empty now. Memories returned to her in a flood. She recalled that day they got married, in a relatively small ceremony by Adam's later standards in Napa Valley. They'd wanted to keep it intimate, with only close family and friends. At the time, Adam had said, "I don't care about big displays or who sees us. I just want to call you my wife." He was so genuine, so in love. What happened to that man? A knock sounded on the door. Sarah pressed her palm against her eyes, swiping away tears before calling out, "Come in." A moment later, her best friend, Naomi Davis, poked her head in. Naomi was a public relations consultant who lived close enough to visit frequently. She was also the one person who seemed unafraid of Adam's new, intimidating aura. "Hey," Naomi said softly, slipping inside and closing the door behind her. "I saw Delgado on my way in." He looked worried. Sarah forced a small laugh. "He's probably worried we'll have a domestic meltdown before the baby's born." Naomi crossed the room, placed her purse on a nearby chair, and sat down beside Sarah on the bed. "What's going on? You look miserable." It took Sarah a moment, but then the entire story poured out. She told Naomi how Adam had referred to her appearance, how he refused to take her to Bill Gates's upcoming party. She couldn't keep the frustration and heartbreak out of her voice. "He said it was because I'm so tired, so pregnant. But I know the real reason. He thinks I'm not good enough for his new social circle." Naomi's expression darkened. "That's awful. I know Adam's had his head in the clouds with all this new fame, but I never thought he'd be this callous. You're his wife. This should be a joyful time for you both, preparing for the baby. Not this." Sarah fiddled with the hem of her dress. "Sometimes I wonder if it was a mistake to marry him. Not because I don't love him, but because maybe I can't live up to his standards." Naomi's eyes flashed. "You're not the problem here, honey. Adam's lost sight of what matters. He thinks rubbing shoulders with the world's elite means he needs a perfect trophy wife by his side. And that's so superficial. He's forgetting that you're carrying his child." Sarah felt a tear escape. "I know. I just don't know what to do." A spark of determination lit up Naomi's face. "He's not going to the party alone," she declared. "You're going to make an appearance, and you're going to look incredible. Let him see what he's about to throw away." Sarah hesitated. "How?" "I mean, I do feel tired, and pregnant, and big. I can't hide this belly. It's impossible. You don't have to hide it," Naomi insisted. "Pregnancy is beautiful, your glow, your strength. We'll work with stylists, makeup artists, people I know personally in the industry. We'll make you shine, not in some cheap way, but elegantly. Show him he's been blind. A swirl of emotions rose within Sarah: hope, anxiety, anger, love. I want to believe that can help. But what if it doesn't change the way he sees me? Naomi put an arm around her. At least you'll know you tried. And more importantly, you'll do this for yourself. Because you deserve to walk into that party with your head high, pregnant or not, looking amazing. And if Adam can't see that, it's his loss. But trust me, she added with a grin, he'll see it. Sarah exhaled shakily, nodding. She couldn't deny the stirring excitement in her heart. Maybe this was the push she needed. Maybe a dramatic transformation, a visible shift in how she presented herself would jolt Adam's conscience. Or, at the very least, she wouldn't spend the rest of her life wondering if she had done everything possible to salvage her marriage. The next morning, Naomi wasted no time. She made a flurry of calls, booking appointments with stylists, designers, and makeup artists who specialized in high-profile events. One name in particular stood out: Angeline Rossi, an avant-garde designer who had done maternity couture for Hollywood A-listers. Within a day, Angeline arrived at the Harrington estate, a whirlwind of creativity. She was a tall woman with a sleek black bob, dressed in a bright pink jumpsuit, carrying an array of fabric swatches in a leather portfolio. She introduced herself to Sarah with a wide grin. "Darling, you're glowing," Angeline exclaimed, gently touching Sarah's belly. "Now, let's see what we can do to enhance that goddess energy." Sarah felt an immediate sense of relief. Angeline wasn't looking at her with pity or condescension. Instead, she seemed genuinely excited to dress her. They spent hours in the sitting room, rifling through sketches and trying on various silhouettes. Angeline's vision was clear. "Let the bump be the star," she proclaimed. "No reason to hide it. Let's highlight how beautiful pregnancy can be." Naomi supervised the process, texting potential makeup artists while giving nods of approval or suggestions for certain outfits. Occasionally, Sarah would catch a glimpse of Adam passing by in the hallway, clearly bewildered by the flurry of activity. He'd glance inside, see Angeline draping shimmering fabrics over Sarah's figure, and furrow his brow in confusion before hurrying off to another meeting. At first, the fittings were an emotional journey for Sarah. She was unaccustomed to seeing her pregnancy bump as anything but a source of self-consciousness. Whenever she looked in the mirror, she'd notice the widened hips, the slight swelling in her face. But under Angeline's guidance, Sarah discovered how a well-tailored dress could accentuate her curves in a flattering way, how certain colors, like deep sapphire or emerald, could bring out the sparkle in her eyes. Little by little, Sarah began to appreciate her changed body. "I'm carrying a life," she reminded herself, mentally transforming her shame into pride. At one point, Naomi glanced at her phone and gasped, "Oh my goodness, Sarah, you won't believe it." Bill Gates apparently confirmed the attendance of other high-profile guests: Kim Kardashian, Beyoncé, Prince Harry, Oprah Winfrey. It's basically turning into the Met Gala of philanthropic gatherings. Sarah swallowed hard. Wow, she wasn't sure if it was more exciting or terrifying. Angeline clapped her hands. "All the more reason to ensure your look is absolutely sensational. Trust me, darling, we'll make you shine." As the day progressed, Sarah tried on a series of options: a long, flowing lavender gown, a sleek black ensemble with shimmering accents, a forest green dress that contrasted beautifully with her complexion. For each choice, Angeline assessed Sarah's posture and complexion, going into a stream of consciousness monologue about lines and form. After nearly 4 hours, Angeline settled on her masterpiece design: a bespoke gown in midnight blue, crafted from fine silk that hugged Sarah's figure around the bust and flowed down gracefully to accommodate her growing belly. Intricate lace detailing traced the neckline, giving it an air of refined elegance. When Sarah first saw herself in the full-length mirror, she froze. She barely recognized the woman she saw. There was confidence in that reflection, a regal bearing that spoke of motherhood as power, not weakness. Her eyes welled up with tears, but this time they were tears of awe, not sorrow. Naomi beamed. "You look stunning, Sarah." Angeline winked. "Now, let's talk accessories and shoes. Comfort is key, given your condition. But that doesn't mean we can't make a statement." Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn. Sarah couldn't help but wonder, where was Adam now? Was he at some business meeting, clueless about the transformation happening within these walls? And when he saw her, would it even matter to him? The doubt lingered at the back of her mind, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the flicker of hope that Angeline and Naomi had reignited. In 2 weeks, she would show up at that party. She would remind Adam and perhaps herself of who she truly was, a strong, resilient woman who deserved respect and love, regardless of how presentable she looked in the eyes of the elite. While Sarah's makeover journey was underway, Adam was swept up in a different stream of chaos. The upcoming party was more than just a social event. It was also a potential deal-making arena. Philanthropists and tech giants from around the globe would be there, each with their own vision for the future. Adam was determined to secure a collaboration for a new philanthropic tech program. He was spearheading an initiative that would use cutting-edge AI to combat climate change. On the surface, it sounded noble. Harrington Innovations invests in saving the planet. But Naomi, and even Delgado, privately noted that Adam seemed more focused on the PR potential than on the genuine cause. He spent days in marathon meetings, refining a polished pitch deck, brainstorming how to captivate Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and other movers and shakers. In one of those meetings, he sat with Delgado and a few select investors in the sleek conference room of Harrington Innovations. Large screens displayed graphs and projections, all meticulously prepared. "So, the pitch will highlight how my AI can predict climate-related disasters," Adam explained, pacing in front of the group. "We'll show them the data. We have predictions about rising sea levels, weather changes, agricultural impact. Then we propose a philanthropic alliance, matching funds, research grants, the whole shebang. We want to be the go-to partner for environmental solutions in the tech world." Delgado nodded, taking rapid notes. "I've scheduled a separate breakout conversation with Bill Gates's philanthropic team. They're interested in any synergy with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation if we impress them." Adam's eyes lit up. "Yes, that's exactly what we need. A high-profile philanthropic tie. That's good press and real influence." One of the investors, a middle-aged man named Martin Rosario, shifted uncomfortably. "I appreciate the ambition, Adam. But I have a question. Where does your wife factor into this event? Usually these social gatherings revolve around couples, especially if we're aiming to present a family-friendly brand." Adam stiffened. He'd told himself he wouldn't lie about Sarah's absence. He'd simply frame it as doctor's orders or travel restrictions. Still, the question irked him. "Sarah's not going," he said tersely. "She's pregnant. This event will be too hectic for her." Martin seemed unconvinced. "Is that entirely wise? People admire seeing family unity, especially if you're launching a philanthropic effort that extends to future generations. A pregnant wife by your side might actually reinforce the narrative." The vein in Adam's temple pulsed. "Her health comes first," he replied. "I've made my decision. The event is in less than 2 weeks, and I need to keep my focus on sealing this deal." No one questioned him further, but Delgado's eyes flickered with concern. He knew Adam well enough to sense deeper issues. However, Delgado also understood that Adam didn't welcome personal questions from subordinates. After the meeting concluded, Adam retreated to his private office. There, behind closed doors, he allowed himself a moment of introspection. A flash of guilt crept in as he recalled how he spoke to Sarah earlier. He wasn't blind. He knew his words had stung her, but he convinced himself it was necessary. We can't both be stressed, he rationalized. She should be resting, not parading around at a celebrity party where every camera phone is pointed her way. He also couldn't deny a shallow thought lurking at the back of his mind. Sarah was different now. The glow he once admired had been replaced by tired eyes, uneven complexion, and a figure he no longer found the apex of attractiveness. Of course, he told himself it was just hormones, that it would pass after the baby came. But for now, was it so wrong to want to keep that image away from the public spotlight? Pushing these conflicting feelings aside, Adam returned to the pitch deck. Numbers, projections, potential alliances, that was his domain, and he excelled there. Emotions, empathy, the intimate corners of marriage, he feared he had lost his touch. Or maybe, somewhere inside, he believed those things were a luxury he could no longer afford on his meteoric climb to success. Back at the estate, Sarah was in a newly set-up styling station in one of the mansion's larger guest bedrooms. Angeline had commandeered the space for the final dress, fitting, and makeup trials. Naomi flitted in and out with updates on the event's guest list and the arrival times of stylists, while Sarah tried to keep her nerves in check. The makeup artist, a soft-spoken man named Yoshi Tanaka, meticulously prepped Sarah's skin. As he blended foundation and lightly contoured her features, Sarah noticed something she hadn't seen in a long time, a brightness in her own eyes. It was as if the swirl of new experiences, the support from Naomi, the artistry of Angeline and Yoshi was rekindling a part of her identity she'd lost. Meanwhile, in the corner, Angeline was making last-minute tweaks to the midnight blue gown. She examined every seam, every bit of lace detailing. Perfection is in the details, she'd say with a flourish, then proceed to adjust something minuscule that only her trained eye could detect. Naomi scrolled through her phone, reading a news alert. Apparently, the paparazzi are already camped out near Bill Gates' private event space. People are calling it the charity event of the decade. They've got tons of celebrities on the list: Beyoncé, Jay-Z, Kim Kardashian, Shakira, Prince Harry, Oprah Winfrey, maybe even rumored cameo by Warren Buffett. Sarah inhaled sharply, a twinge of anxiety creeping in. I've never been to such a high-profile event. Even our own wedding wasn't this huge. Naomi squeezed her hand gently. I know it's daunting, but remember, your goal is not to impress the paparazzi. It's to stand in your truth, look great, and remind Adam of the woman he married. Sarah nodded. A flicker of resolve ignited in her chest. I'm doing this for myself too. I need to remember who I am beyond this pregnancy, beyond his condescending remarks. Naomi gave her a proud smile. That's exactly the right attitude. 2 hours later, Sarah found herself in front of the floor-length mirror, fully transformed. Yoshi had woven her soft, wavy hair into an elegant updo, with a few loose tendrils framing her face. Her makeup was subtle but refined, smoky eyes that deepened her gaze, a soft blush to enhance her cheeks, and a nude lip that balanced the dramatic eye makeup. The midnight blue gown now fit her like a second skin. The silk flowed around her baby bump, trailing behind her in a graceful train. She stepped back, and her breath caught in her throat. Was that truly her reflection? She looked regal, confident, like a goddess stepping onto a stage. Even her posture had changed. She stood taller, as if the gown and styling had somehow imbued her with a queenly bearing. Naomi clapped her hands, tears brimming in her eyes. "Oh, Sarah, you're stunning, absolutely radiant." Angeline beamed like a proud mother. "I knew it. I just knew that color would be mesmerizing on you." Sarah's eyes glistened. "Thank you, both of you. I feel beautiful." Just then, The door opened, revealing Adam standing in the threshold. He froze, eyes widening at the sight before him. For a moment, no one spoke. The tension in the room became palpable, as if even the air held its breath. He took a cautious step forward, scanning Sarah from head to toe. His expression flickered with something akin to awe, though a hint of annoyance also lingered in his furrowed brow. "What is all this?" he asked, trying to maintain composure. Naomi stepped forward, chin held high. "We're preparing Sarah for the party. You know, the one Bill Gates is hosting." A mix of emotions played across Adam's features, shock, admiration, and discomfort all at once. His eyes darted to Sarah's belly, then back to her radiant face. "But I thought you weren't going." Sarah took a deep breath. She didn't want to argue, not in front of everyone, but she held Adam's gaze firmly. "I've changed my mind," she said softly but resolutely. "I want to support you. I want to be there." Adam opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. He looked at her again, the polished sheen of her transformation revealing a woman he hadn't bothered to see for months. She was breathtaking pregnant, yes, but carrying herself with a dignity that made him feel suddenly small. For a moment, the old Adam flickered in his eyes. He cleared his throat, struggling to maintain his usual confident posture. "All right, well, we'll talk later." He pivoted and left the room, leaving a swirl of anticipation and unresolved tension in his wake. Naomi and Angeline exchanged glances. Sarah sighed, feeling a mixture of triumph and anxiety. Adam had truly seen her, for the first time in a long while, but whether this was the beginning of a reconciliation or yet another rift, only time would tell. The night of the party finally arrived. Bill Gates's lavish venue was set on a private estate in the outskirts of Seattle. A winding drive, flanked by sculpted hedges, led to a grand entrance where paparazzi lights flashed relentlessly. Chauffeured cars lined up to drop off the world's elite, each more dazzlingly dressed than the last. Inside, the main reception hall boasted marble floors, a dazzling crystal chandelier, and modern art pieces worth millions adorning the walls. Guests sipped champagne from crystal flutes, while an orchestra played gentle classical music in the background. It was a scene befitting royalty, and in many ways those present were the royalty of the modern age. Sarah's heart pounded as the limousine approached the entrance. She took several steadying breaths, Naomi's words echoing in her mind. "You're beautiful, you belong, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Adam sat beside her, unnervingly quiet. He wore a tailored Armani tux, custom-made shoes, and an expression that seemed torn between pride and apprehension. When the car stopped, he turned to Sarah, finally breaking the silence. "Ready?" She lifted her chin. Yes. A well-dressed attendant opened the door and Adam stepped out first. Flashes exploded from the cameras. In the next moment, he extended a hand to help Sarah out. For an instant, she hesitated, memories of his harsh words lingered, but she took his hand. As she emerged, the paparazzi's frenzy grew. Shouts filled the air. "Adam! Over here, mister! Harrington, who designed your wife's dress. Sarah, you look incredible. How far along are you?" Despite her nerves, Sarah maintained her composure, offering a polite smile. She felt Adam tense beside her, but couldn't discern whether it was from excitement or discomfort. As they entered the reception hall, heads turned. People who knew Adam whispered amongst themselves, clearly taken aback by the stunning woman on his arm. Moving through the crowd, they encountered acquaintances, business partners, and philanthropic leaders. Each person greeted Sarah warmly, complimenting her gown and congratulating her on the pregnancy. Sarah responded with grace, her voice steady, her eyes shining with renewed confidence. At one point, Bill Gates himself approached them, accompanied by his wife, Melinda. The philanthropic couple exchanged pleasantries, with Bill congratulating Adam on Harrington Innovation's success. Melinda turned to Sarah and said, "You look absolutely radiant. Congratulations on your growing family." "Thank you," Sarah replied, a genuine smile lighting her face. Meanwhile, Adam engaged Bill in a discussion about climate change initiatives, stumbling at first, but regaining his composure. Sarah listened politely, resisting the urge to withdraw, as she might have in the past, overshadowed by Adam's ambitions. This time, she stood at his side not as a decorative piece, but as a confident presence who contributed her own insights about philanthropic strategies. She referenced her background in event coordination and how she believed technology could empower grassroots movements. Bill and Melinda both seemed impressed. Sarah could see the look of mild surprise on Adam's face. He was seeing a version of his wife he hadn't bothered to engage with in a long time. As the evening wore on, Sarah mingled with luminaries, discussing everything from the environment to global health initiatives. Her baby bump became a conversation starter, prompting well wishes and maternal advice from other attendees. She felt included, respected, even admired. Every now and then, she caught Adam watching her from across the room with a strange mix of emotions in his eyes: admiration, uncertainty, maybe even guilt. She couldn't be sure, but she hoped something was stirring in him. Midway through the night, Adam guided Sarah to a quieter corner near an ornate fountain. The water sparkled under ambient lighting, creating a soothing backdrop in an otherwise bustling event. He gestured to a small settee, and they both sat. He cleared his throat. "I have to admit, you've really surprised me tonight." She raised a brow, folding her hands over her belly. "Surprised you how?" He seemed to choose his words carefully. I didn't realize. I mean, you look amazing. And you've handled everyone so gracefully. Even Bill Gates and his wife were impressed by your insights." Sarah's lips tightened into a subtle smile. "I haven't changed that much, Adam. Maybe you just forgot who I was." Her words hung in the air, a gentle admonishment that carried a world of unspoken hurt. Adam looked down, fiddling with the silk handkerchief in his pocket. "I'm sorry," he said, softly, almost inaudibly above the fountain's trickling water. For a moment, Sarah felt her chest tighten with the surge of tears. She had longed to hear that word from him. But was it enough? She placed a hand gently over his. "Adam, we have a child on the way. We can't keep living like two strangers. We need to rediscover why we got married in the first place." He nodded slowly. "You're right, but whether that acknowledgement would blossom into true change or remain a hollow gesture, Sarah couldn't tell. She only knew that tonight she had claimed her dignity back. If Adam was ready to atone for his words, that was a path they'd have to walk together. The party continued well into the night. Amidst the swirl of champagne toasts and glamorous photo ops, Adam and Sarah found themselves at the epicenter of curious glances. Some recognized Adam from business headlines, while others marveled at Sarah's striking presence. An hour after their private chat by the fountain, Adam guided Sarah toward a small group of influential leaders. Among them stood Jeff Bezos and a few philanthropic entrepreneurs discussing global education initiatives. Adam introduced Sarah to them with an unexpected warmth in his voice. "This is my wife, Sarah Harrington. She's been a major force behind my philanthropic outlook." Sarah glanced at Adam, surprise flickering in her eyes. He'd never credited her like that before in a public setting. It felt validating, yet also bittersweet, considering how distant he had been in recent months. They spoke about education technologies, the importance of providing resources to underprivileged communities, and how AI could amplify teaching methods. Sarah contributed her thoughts, recounting her experience in event coordination and local community outreach. Bezos nodded thoughtfully, intrigued by her perspective. As they moved on, Sarah noticed Adam's posture had changed. He carried himself less like a lone wolf and more like a man who recognized the value of partnership. There was even a subtle protective gesture in how he placed a hand on her back, guiding her through the crowd so she wouldn't be jostled. Eventually, the orchestra announced the beginning of a formal dance. The lights dimmed, and couples drifted onto the polished floor. Sarah wasn't sure if dancing was even an option in her pregnant state. Her balance was a bit precarious. And she wore heels, comfortable ones, thanks to Angeline's foresight, but still heels. To her surprise, Adam turned to her. "Would you like to dance?" Her heart fluttered. She studied him warily, half expecting a catch. But his expression was earnest. "Yes," she finally said. He led her carefully onto the dance floor. The music was a slow waltz, lilting and gentle. Sarah placed one hand on Adam's shoulder, the other in his hand, mindful of her baby bump between them. He moved tentatively at first, as if rediscovering how to hold her. They swayed together, the soft glow of chandeliers casting warm light across their faces. For a few minutes, it felt as though the world outside them faded. No paparazzi, no big deals, no barbed comments about her appearance. It was just them, wrapped in a moment reminiscent of their wedding dance in Napa Valley, where they had looked into each other's eyes with unbridled hope for the future. Sarah felt tears welling but blinked them away. This was the Adam she had fallen in love with, gentle, sincere, protective. She leaned closer, her cheek brushing against his shoulder. "Adam," she whispered, "I've missed you." He tightened his embrace slightly, hesitating before replying. "I'm here now," he said, though his voice held a note of regret. "And I'm sorry for the things I said, for how I treated you." She pulled back to look at him. "Why did you do it?" she asked softly. "When did appearances become more important than our family?" He closed his eyes briefly, exhaling. "I don't know," he admitted. "Somewhere along the way I got caught up in everything. The success, the power, the image. I was terrified of anything that might tarnish my reputation or even just make me seem less than perfect in front of these people. I guess I convinced myself that if you came looking tired or pregnant in a way that wasn't glamorous, it would undermine all the hard work I've done." Sarah swallowed, sadness mingled with empathy. "But you see now that it doesn't have to be that way, right? That I can still be by your side without hurting your image." He nodded, brushing a stray curl of hair from her forehead. "Yes, I see that now. You shone tonight, Sarah. Everyone was talking about how graceful and intelligent you were. I was the fool who doubted you." She clutched his hand more tightly. "Adam, I appreciate your apology, but I need more than words. We're about to have a child. This can't be a one-time correction. We need to fix the root of our problems." He gazed into her eyes, and under the soft lights, Sarah thought she saw genuine remorse. "I'm ready to try," he said. "I love you, and I want to be there for you and our baby." A tear rolled down Sarah's cheek, and she managed a weak smile. "Then let's do it, together." They continued dancing, neither entirely sure of what the future held, but both aware that something fundamental had shifted. Under the grandeur of Bill Gates' chandelier, amidst the swirling couples and star-studded crowd, Adam and Sarah Harrington had found a spark of hope in a marriage that many had written off. In the days following the event, the media buzzed about Sarah Harrington's debut at one of the year's most exclusive gatherings. Gossip columns and social media posts praised her elegant style and the way she carried herself as a soon-to-be mother. Photos of her in the midnight blue gown circulated alongside headlines like "Move Over," "Hollywood Meet the New Maternity Icon." Adam, who usually relished any positive media coverage, found himself oddly reflective as he read these articles in his home office. For once, it wasn't just about the brand image. It was about what the coverage represented, The world now saw Sarah's strength and beauty, something he'd been too blind to acknowledge. Meanwhile, Sarah tried to navigate this newfound attention with grace. Naomi fielded calls from reporters wanting interviews about her transformation, even from maternity fashion magazines seeking a feature. Naomi, with her PR background, suggested they capitalize on this moment to promote philanthropic causes close to Sarah's heart, like maternal health care and community-based support for pregnant women in underprivileged areas. It's perfect. Naomi enthused over coffee in the estate's sunroom. You can do so much good with this spotlight. Show people that pregnant women can be glamorous and still be advocates for important social issues. Sarah smiled, cupping her tea in both hands. I'd love that. If it helps even one expecting mother feel less isolated or overlooked, I'm in. However, not everything was rosy. Adam's apology had been genuine, but old habits died hard. He continued to devote long hours to Harrington Innovations, prepping for the new philanthropic AI project. He was often away at meetings, business trips, or locked in his office. Yet he made more of an effort to check on Sarah, asking about her doctor's appointments, baby preparations, and even offering to accompany her to prenatal classes. One evening, Sarah decided to invite Adam to a routine ultrasound appointment. They hadn't attended one together in nearly a month. I'd like you to meet the new obstetrician, she told him hesitantly, aware of how busy his schedule was. She's been asking if my husband would ever show up. Adam glanced at his planner on his phone. Yeah, I have a meeting, but I can reschedule it. Of course I'll come. Sarah released a breath. She didn't realize she was holding, thank you. At the hospital, they waited in a small examination room, pastel walls lined with posters about fetal development. The whir of the ultrasound machine filled the air as the doctor applied gel to Sarah's stomach. Adam stood beside her, his hand atop hers. Then, in grainy black and white on the screen, they saw their baby, a tiny form, with a rapidly beating heart. Tears pricked Sarah's eyes as the doctor pointed out limbs, the spine, and the profile of a minuscule face. Adam's gaze locked on the screen, his lips parting in awe. That's our baby, he said, his voice quieter than Sarah had ever heard it. She squeezed his hand. Yes, it is. After the appointment, as they walked back to the car, Adam seemed unusually subdued. He stared at the ultrasound photo, his eyes moist. Sarah, I can't believe I almost shut you out of that party. I can't believe I made you feel like you weren't good enough when you're carrying this miracle. Sarah's heart twisted with both sorrow and hope. You were lost for a while, she said gently, but we can still find our way if you're really committed. He looked up, meeting her gaze, determination etched on his face. I am, he said. I want us to be a family, a real family. They embraced under the afternoon sun, the hum of traffic and distant hospital chatter fading around them. Sarah clung to that promise, praying that Adam's words would translate into enduring actions. The months that followed brought many changes. Sarah's pregnancy continued smoothly, and she found fulfillment in her new role as a budding maternal health advocate. With Naomi's guidance, she began working closely with charities that provided resources for pregnant women who lacked insurance or family support. She even hosted a small charity event at the Harrington estate, raising significant funds for a local shelter. Adam, for his part, tried to be more present. He accompanied Sarah to doctor's visits, making it a point to clear his schedule at least once a week to focus on their future together. They attended a prenatal yoga class one Saturday morning, where Adam's stiff posture and awkward attempts at poses elicited laughter from everyone, including him. It was a rare moment of light-heartedness that reminded them both of simpler times. Even in the realm of business, Adam began shifting the culture at Harrington Innovations. While still determined to grow, he placed more emphasis on corporate responsibility and employee well-being, inspired perhaps by the philanthropic wave he'd ridden at Bill Gates' party, but this time with more sincerity. He started scheduling volunteer days for employees and matching charitable donations. Delgado noticed a change in how Adam communicated with staff, less abrupt, more open to ideas. Yet, as Sarah entered her final trimester, new concerns arose. She worried about how Adam would handle fatherhood. Would his ambition overshadow his parental responsibilities? Would she be left raising their child alone while he chased the next deal? One evening, as they lounged in the living room, Sarah's feet propped on a cushion, Adam seated beside her, she broached the subject. When the baby comes, she began carefully, I need to know if you're going to be fully involved, not just financially, but emotionally. Adam paused, swirling the ice cubes in his glass of water. I've been thinking a lot about that, he admitted. I know my track record hasn't been the best, but I want to be different. I want to be someone our child can look up to, someone you can rely on. Sarah studied his face. That means you might have to make compromises, step back from certain deals, delegate more. He nodded. I've already started. Delgado's been taking on more responsibilities. We've hired 2 new executives to share the workload. I want to be there when our child says their first words, takes their first steps. I don't want to miss those moments. Relief and gratitude flooded Sarah's chest. She reached for his hand, and he laced his fingers through hers. In that moment, she believed that maybe they were finally on the same page. As Sarah's due date approached, the paparazzi interest in the glamorous pregnant wife of Adam Harrington grew, but she handled it with a cool head, focusing on her philanthropic commitments rather than the glitz. Adam found himself in a surprising position. Rather than seeking the spotlight, he often shielded Sarah from intrusive media. Finally, the day arrived. In a swirl of hospital lights, monitors beeping, and a flurry of medical staff, Sarah went into labor. Adam stood by her side, holding her hand, whispering encouragement even as she groaned and cried through the contractions. Hours passed in a blur of pain, anticipation, and nerves. But then a piercing wail filled the room, the sound of new life. Exhausted and tearful, Sarah held their baby daughter against her chest. Adam's eyes brimmed with tears as he gently stroked the newborn's tiny head, covered in delicate wisps of hair. "She's perfect," he breathed. "You're perfect." Sarah glanced up at him, sweat-soaked and exhausted, but happier than she'd ever felt. "I love you," she managed to say between ragged breaths. He kissed her forehead. "I love you too," he murmured. And in that hospital room, no paparazzi, no board meetings, no designers, just a new mother, a new father, and their child. The rest of the world ceased to matter. Adam's transformation was far from complete. It would be a lifelong journey of balancing ambition with humility, power with love. But at least, on this monumental day, he had taken a giant step toward becoming the man Sarah and now their daughter needed him to be. A month later, the Harrington estate felt more alive than ever. Where once the air had been filled with tension and formality, now it brimmed with soft lullabies, the gentle rustling of a baby's blanket, and the occasional cry that sent everyone scurrying to tend to the little one. In the spacious nursery designed by Angeline Rossi's sister, an interior decorator who specialized in infant rooms, pastel colors, and whimsical murals, gave the space a dreamy vibe. A cozy rocking chair by the window became Sarah's favorite spot for feeding their daughter, whom they named Emilia. Adam, still clad in a business shirt and slacks, sat cross-legged on the plush carpet, carefully assembling a baby swing. He grumbled at the confusing instructions but persevered, determined to do it himself. Sarah watched from the rocking chair, cradling Amelia in her arms, a soft smile on her face. It was a small but meaningful scene. Adam Harrington, millionaire mogul, kneeling on the floor, dedicating an evening to fatherhood. At times, old habits threatened to creep in. Adam would receive a call from a high-profile investor at odd hours, and Sarah would see the flicker of tension cross his face. But he'd often let it ring a few more times, finish feeding Amelia, or kiss Sarah on the forehead before stepping away to handle business. For Sarah, it was a subtle but profound gesture. He was placing family before work, if only for a few extra seconds. Those seconds added up. One afternoon, Naomi visited with a camera crew, having pitched the idea of filming a short documentary on Sarah's philanthropic journey. Sarah hesitated at first. She didn't want to expose Amelia to public scrutiny too soon. But the documentary would focus on maternal health advocacy, highlighting the new shelter she was helping fund. After careful thought, Sarah agreed, ensuring strict guidelines to protect their family's privacy. "Thank you for doing this," Naomi said, as they set up in the estate's sunroom. "Your story can inspire thousands of women who think they have to hide away during pregnancy or feel inadequate." Sarah handed Amelia to a nanny temporarily so she could film. "It's worth it if it encourages even one mother," she said. The interview covered many topics, from Sarah's initial insecurities to her glamorous makeover and the aftermath. She was candid, acknowledging that Adam's superficial concerns had deeply hurt her. But she also talked about forgiveness, growth, and the importance of communication in marriage. Adam joined for a brief segment, albeit nervously. He admitted to his past mistakes, looking directly into the camera with humility. "I was wrong," he said. "I was caught up in public image and neglected what really matters, my wife and our future family. I hope our story shows that it's never too late to change and to stand by the ones you love." When the filming wrapped, Naomi's camera crew began to pack up. Naomi hugged Sarah tightly. "You were amazing, so real. People need that honesty." Adam, who was holding Amelia again, gave a small, grateful smile. "Thank you for believing in us," he said to Naomi. Sarah turned toward him. "You know, we've come a long way since you refused to take me to that party." He winced but nodded. "It's a part of our story now. It showed me how blind I'd become." Sarah touched his arm gently. "And how much we can grow." The sunlight slanted through the windows, illuminating Amelia's soft features. In that moment, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Their marriage had been tested, nearly fractured by pride and superficiality, but they had found a way back through love, humility, and a willingness to see each other anew. In truth, the real work was just beginning. Parenthood was uncharted territory, and Adam would constantly juggle the demands of a global business. But the heartbreaks and triumphs they'd experienced had forged a deeper bond. Every soft coo from Amelia or shared glance across the nursery reminded them that life's greatest legacy lay not in wealth or public opinion, but in the love that filled their home. In the end, Adam and Sarah Harrington's story isn't just about a dazzling makeover at a celebrity party. It's about rediscovering the deeper reasons that bring two people together. Their journey proves that no matter how lost we become in the pursuit of success or how disconnected we feel from our loved ones, there's always a chance for redemption through love, humility, and understanding. If this heartfelt, dramatic tale resonated with you, help us keep these stories alive by supporting our channel. Like this video if you believe in the power of transformation and second chances. Share it with friends who might need that spark of hope in their own relationships. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an uplifting story like this one. Together, let's celebrate the triumph of love over life's biggest challenges.